Let's begin with the images that came in, absolutely stunning visuals from yesterday of how Ukraine managed these kind of drone strikes on multiple locations simultaneously in one shot in Russia. And Russia had no idea this was coming. How did they pull it off? This is a mission called Spiderweb. Why is it called that? Because you had drones that look like spiders. If you see this particular picture, you can see those drones. Hundreds of them, by the way, were used. They look like spiders. They were kept inside trucks and wooden sheds and then sent right into the heart of Russia. Once at their strategic location, they were sent across. Ukraine has been planning these drone attacks for 18 months. It showed because of the level of detailing and planning, Russia clearly did not see this coming. So this is how these drones were taken into Russia. What happened right after that? Well, these drones, in fact, were kept in these trucks, these kind of massive trucks, which many believed was carrying cargo and nothing else, was driving through Russia. It was strategically then parked at a location very close to airfields, air bases that Ukraine wanted to target. And then the drones would take off. They take off from these trucks, as you see in these videos here. They take off from the trucks, directly head to the location. And these drones, of course, were being operated by people, not sure if they were within Russia or in Ukraine, but from close range. They were being operated to take off from the truck and then go towards the intended target, which was air bases. And this has happened in multiple locations of Russia. What happens right after that? Well, these particular drones, the FPVs, first-person view drones, which is why you see the footage so crystal clear. These drones went into these air bases. We're showing you one such example where the drone flies around. Clearly, again, like I said, Russia had no idea this was coming, so they had no way of stopping it, which is why the drone operator could take his time, surveilling exactly that entire area, figuring out exactly which should be the point of impact perfectly, and ensuring that the Russian jet is destroyed completely. So you see the drone reaching its intended target, hovering around for quite some time, figuring out left, right, center, where really should it hit, and then drops down at its intended target to ensure that all of these assets in Russia are damaged. And we're talking about billions of dollars of damage being reported right now to Russia as a result of these strikes. Now let's take you through the other footage also, and you see that particular impact moment, dramatic to say the least. Several nuclear-capable jets of Russia were also in flames. This is that moment there where you see several of these jets being hit, and then they are up in massive explosions. According to Russian defense officials and the ministry, 4 airfields, 1 naval base were attacked by Ukrainian drones. Many of these jets were essentially the ones that would carry any sort of nukes that Russia planned to hit Ukraine with. Now, many of them are down and out, courtesy Ukraine's attack. And that was clearly the intention. I'll get you another video now that shows a Russian soldier who actually recorded the entire sequence, the devastation of one of the air bases which was targeted. He seems to be in complete disbelief for obvious reasons that something like this could even happen, and so brazenly in broad daylight. You can see him shooting that video, showing behind him, and you see the kind of damage as he pans his camera to show the smoke. Let's just play this video out for you.
Тут пизда, 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 тут пизда.
So just look at those plumes of smoke all around him on either side. So just imagine the damage that's been reported at just one of those air bases, and similarly in so many such airfields that Russia had. So this is another footage. What about Russia's reaction? How were they caught napping while this happened? Russia has claimed that they also intercepted several Ukrainian drones, and they released this video of the torpedo airs claiming to destroy Ukrainian drones depot in Kharkiv as well. So this is essentially Russia claiming that we're hitting back. But obviously at this point, this is just the first step. You're going to be seeing a lot more of a response. Take a look at this video that Russia put out. So that's a video that Russia has put out to claim that, look, we're countering Ukraine. The reality is, however, that they didn't see this coming whatsoever. And so there are concerns right now of exactly what Vladimir Putin will do in response to this strike, these drone strikes by Ukraine, which they say was in the making and planning for 18 months now. But what kind of damages are we talking about? What has Russia suffered as a result of this particular Operation Spiderweb? That's, the name that Ukraine has given it. 41 Russian jets have been destroyed simultaneously in a matter of minutes on June 1st. Now, many of these jets important to Russia. It cost them billions of dollars, to say the least. The Tu-95 jet, nuclear-capable strategic bomber. It's a long-range strike platform as well. You'll see in the course of these details that I give you that many of the jets that have been targeted were nuclear capable. Nukes essentially were targeted in a sense, because you've got all of these carriers being targeted by Ukraine to send out a message that, look, we'll ensure that there's no way you can strike us. The Tu-22 jets also, which carries the supersonic missiles with about 4,000 kilometers per hour range, that's been hit as well. So all of these up in flames, absolute damage that's been wreaked to Russian infrastructure. The A-50 airborne radars, aircraft that's equipped with system that can detect strikes up to 650 kilometers. So you see here how strategically Ukraine has essentially chosen its targets, ensuring that they dent Russia in such a way that they can't just counter, but also with regards to how they can detect any upcoming strike from Ukraine. So that's why Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that this has been in the works. We've been planning it for 18 months. That's how we pulled it off. There are questions, of course, being asked of Russian intel on how they didn't see this coming, because all of these assets, the air assets that they have, they were all parked in air bases, airfields, which is typically a high security area. And yet these drones permeated right through. So this is being referred to as Russia's Pearl Harbor moment. And again, I'll remind you, it's unprecedented what we've seen. Why is that? Well, first, because of the depth of strikes. We're not talking about the outskirts of Russia. This is right into the heartland of Russia that we've seen these strikes. Military bases about 5,000 kilometers deep into Russia have been struck. How did they do this? I explained that at the beginning of this broadcast with these trucks that went right into Russia with zero suspicion. The scale of damage Russia has been hit and how 41 jets destroyed. Russia suffered estimated loss of $7 billion as a result of just one strike in a matter of minutes by Ukraine. There were also clear deception tactics used by Ukraine here. These drones, not out there for everyone to see, entered into Russia in these wooden sheds, in these trucks, was parked near the airfield, and then the drones were sent across to do what they had to do to destroy all of these air assets of Russia. So clearly it was thought out, planned out to ensure that there would be zero suspicion. And then you look at the manner in which this happened as well. The drones were launched remotely, bypassing all Russian air defense systems. How is that, you ask? Well, Russia simply didn't see this coming. They hadn't activated their air defense system. So then there's no question of actually stopping any of these strikes. They didn't see it coming at all. And that's why they were caught napping. And then you have how Ukraine has chosen, particularly all of their locations. The core of Russia's nuclear-capable bomber fleet has been targeted. There's been a lot of nuclear saber rattling by Russia. Ukraine essentially sending across a message that we will hurt you in such a way that there's no question of any nuke threats coming across. There's also, of course, the messaging involved here. The Ukrainian strikes have exposed Russia, their strategic vulnerability. The fact that they didn't have any intel about this strike, the fact that they had nobody around surrounding them, no allies to help them out in this kind of a situation. And clearly, Ukraine pulling this off with some help from within Russia as well. And that's where the big question mark is of what kind of help really Ukraine got and if Russia will be able to weed that out. I want to bring in Gaurav Sawant on this broadcast to kind of decode for us why we've never seen anything like this before. Gaurav, the manner in which these strikes were carried out is something the world is currently analyzing. Experts are looking into about how Ukraine pulled this off against Russia. How is it, Gaurav, that Russia had no clue that something like this was coming? Did their intel fail? Was it that their air bases had no security?
This is the most spectacular, audacious attack ever when it comes to targeting an adversary in this 3-year-old war between Russia and Ukraine. Just look at the length, breadth and magnitude of this attack mounted by Ukraine on Russia and distant airfields, 5 different distant airfields, each one's about 2,000 kilometers from the border, the other's close to 5,500 kilometers from the border, one on the north, the other in the eastern end, one in south. It just goes on to show, one, how well this was planned, how effective this was, because in that part of the world, you have hundreds of trucks that are going in from different borders. Was somebody bribed to let these trucks through over a period of time? President Zelensky said that this was 1.5 years, 18 months and 9 days to be precise in the planning and operationalized. There are some reports in Russia that now seem to indicate that these drones were actually made at a factory inside Russia, then loaded onto trucks, then those trucks were sent to various places. So this is a Trojan horse attack, which means there are sleeper cells inside Russia who are working for Ukraine and for quite a long period of time. So all of this is an indicator that audacious plan, extremely well executed, and the damage caused to Russia, not just in terms of that $7 billion, I mean, that's a huge cost. These super bombers cannot be replaced in a hurry. You need that kind of resources. It's a huge loss to President Putin's prestige. The manner in which he was executing this war, and towards the end of 3 years, everyone was saying, he's on top. He's successfully taken on not just Ukraine, but the combined might of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries, and is emerging, the better of it. But as of now, this round goes to Ukraine and those who backed Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, at great pains to say this is entirely their operation, but Russia's not convinced. And this could mean that in case there are other forces that are involved, then this war could escalate, and God forbid, it could escalate if there is a tactical nuclear strike. Then this could really be, because Russians are now saying this is their Pearl Harbor moment. After Pearl Harbor, America did Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Remains to be seen what Russia does now.
We'll have to wait and watch to see Russia's response. There's no doubt that they're not going to sit back and allow this to happen, because as Gaurav put it here, this has, of course, dented Putin's image greatly, that something like this happened on his watch in his country, with truckloads of drones entering and targeting sensitive locations, what should be high security areas like air bases. Thanks very much, Gaurav, for joining us with those details. But what we've seen essentially in this particular conflict between Russia and Ukraine is how Ukraine has used tech, has used drones to target sensitive locations in Russia, and ensuring that no manpower really is involved in this conflict. We've seen this in many instances of late in the last few years. For example, even in Operation Sindoor, when India conducted those strikes against Pakistan, whether it was the terror hubs or otherwise, these strikes were conducted deep in Pakistani soil without any infiltration. The Air Force was involved, drones were used. Similarly, you look at the pager attacks that had taken place. These were, of course, how Israel essentially struck Hezbollah terrorists, targeting them using smuggled pagers. And then when these pagers were used, they exploded in sync. What we saw were dramatic images of how pagers went up in flames. It led to over 40 deaths as a result. Yahya Sinwar, wanted by Israel. How did they take him out? Well, they went right into Gaza, into Rafah, which is where they went ahead and targeted Sinwar. Remember, there was also that very dramatic footage that came in from these drones showing how he was seated inside his residence, tried to bring down the drone. And so you had extremely precise footage and also precise elimination that took place, again using drone tech. Ismail Haniyeh. There are a lot of questions about Haniyeh's killing, again wanted by Israel, was somewhere in Iran when he was targeted. Of course, clearly Israel had that intel of where he was. To date, we have no exact concrete details of how Haniyeh was eliminated. There are some suggestions it was some sort of a drone strike. There are some questions about whether it was a mysterious gunning down. No details that Israel has offered at this point. But let's get you more details in our next report about all of these incidents that I've referred to and how it's shown you the dramatic change of how war or conflicts, skirmishes play out in today's times.
Ukraine's daring drone strike deep inside Russia. A bolt from the blue for a reigning superpower comes as the latest in the world of military attacks. Considering bold, risky and audacious. Such attacks with deep psychological and strategic implications. India's Operation Sindoor, the most audacious and first ever sweeping attack on a nuclear-capable nation. To punish Pakistan terror and killings of innocents in Pahalgam, India undertook deep strikes on multiple Pakistani air bases, terror headquarters. Using BrahMos and Scalp cruise missiles, Hammer smart bombs. All the time repulsing Pak attacks using Russian S-400 and Desi Akash Tir missile defense. Israel hit the Iranian-backed Hezbollah hard in 2024, using hundreds of pagers and handheld communication devices smuggled inside Lebanon, which exploded in a coordinated way, killing 42 and injuring thousands. Codenamed Operation Grim Reaper, the tactics of the attack seems to have been replayed by Ukraine. Israel pulled off yet another audacious strike when it killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. Sinwar was caught by an Israeli drone mortally wounded after a firefight in Rafah. The drone captured images of Sinwar, missing his right hand and resting inside a dilapidated building. Sinwar was seen throwing a stick at the drone. The building was then pounded by Israel, leading to Sinwar's death. Israel assassinated Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in a daring strike in a guest house run by Iranian military. Haniyeh was in Iran to attend the inauguration of the president. Multiple theories surfaced on the mode of attack. While some said Israel remotely detonated a bomb smuggled inside the complex, others said Israelis struck the fortified complex with a long-range projectile. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's get you an update that's coming in. Even after these strikes, Operation Spiderweb by Ukraine, the second round of Russia-Ukraine peace talks have kicked off in Turkey. Russia is there currently, their delegation present, led by Putin's aide Medinsky for Ukraine. It's in fact the Minister Umerov who's leading the Ukrainian delegation. These peace talks taking place after Ukraine's drone strikes on Russia. Remember that the talks are happening in Istanbul. It's round 2. In the opening statement by Turkey, the foreign minister confirming that Erdogan is in touch with both Putin as well as Zelensky.
President is in constant contact with President Zelensky and President Putin, and he is extending utmost effort. And immediately after the initial meeting, upon the orders of our president, last week I visited Moscow and Kiev, and I had the opportunity to prepare for today's meeting. We discussed the issue in depth with both parties.
Okay, so the images on your screens are of the peace talks that are currently taking place in Istanbul in Turkey. You can see, in fact, those uniformed officials. They are part of the Ukrainian delegation. Symbolically, perhaps, they've chosen to appear for the second round of talks in military uniforms. But so far, remember, in the first round, there was no real headway. But in the second round, there will be questions about whether, with what's happened with Ukraine's drone strike, Russia really would be willing to engage in any sort of dialogue, or for that matter, reach an agreement for a ceasefire. Because everyone's asking one question: how will Russia retaliate right now in the face of what Ukraine did with Operation Spiderweb? But Ukraine maintains that this was a step taken. It was necessitated to ensure that a message was sent across to Russia to come to the dialogue table and to ensure that there's talk of peace, and that's why they conducted this kind of an operation. Let me bring in our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, for more details. Geeta, a big question mark really about whether these peace talks will really yield any result, considering we're seeing it happening right after Operation Spiderweb.
Well, expect it to be inconclusive, but what we are also waiting for, Akshita, right now is to see a reaction from the White House. This is going to be very troubling, and not for Putin, primarily for Zelensky, because he will have to answer to the questions that now White House is going to ask, because they've been caught completely unawares. This is a massive escalation, and Putin certainly is going to respond. So any hopes of Trump brokering a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia does not seem likely to take place anytime soon. It is going to take a while. Because neither of them are listening to Donald Trump. He's been saying that ceasefire is important, that both sides come to the talking table. There was a time when you would either come to the talking table or you would not have a ceasefire and continue with your war plans. This time around, it's almost simultaneous. They're also coming to the talking table and yet continuing with the kind of confrontation that we are seeing. And this is not just confrontation. This is a major escalation. So we have to wait for two responses. One is how the Trump administration is going to look at Zelensky after this incident, because they would call it irresponsible. But more importantly, what is Putin going to do after this? What has Zelensky done, not just for himself or unto himself, but also to Ukraine as a country?
That's right. So we'll have to see really how this progresses in the days to come. And you're right, Geeta, we'll be watching out for that reaction from America as well. Thanks for the moment, Geeta, for joining us with those details. Let's get your details now for political controversy that's playing out in Karnataka over the Siddaramaiah government's decision to release 7 crores for helping Congress workers who are part of, ironically enough, a committee to implement guarantees. So while you've got the Karnataka government repeatedly saying that, look, we don't have the money to ensure full dispersal of guarantees, we'll do it phase-wise, there's delayed payments, whatnot, even so much so that you've got ministers saying we don't have money for development in Karnataka, somehow they've got 7 crores to ensure Congress workers who are part of an implementation committee are kept happy. There's no implementation happening because there's no money, but the committee that apparently will ensure implementation gets 7 crores.
We've heard the Karnataka government repeatedly give excuse after excuse of a financial crunch for being unable to deliver on guarantees. But here's the biggest joke on voters. The Congress government, which has claimed to be cash-strapped, has money not for guarantees, but for committees to implement guarantees. The Siddaramaiah government has released 7.65 crore to workers of a guarantee implementation committee. That's right. no money for the guarantees itself, but enough money to pay these panels. DK Shivakumar, however, has defended his government's splurge.
What is the budget amount for advertisement given on the various governments in the national level? Whatever we have committed, we have kept in the budget and we will implement it. They are jealous of it.
But are guarantees being doled out as scheduled?
The opposition party BJP has criticized Karnataka government's move to release the fund of close to 7.65 crore rupees, the salaries of chairmen and coordinators in guarantee implementing scheme, whereas one of the ministers from Karnataka government had stated that sky won't fall, if at all, if the beneficiaries get 2 or 3 months delayed payment in the guarantee schemes.
The BJP has lashed out at the government, accusing the Congress of prioritizing payments to their cadre rather than the people of Karnataka.
वो काम नहीं कर रहे, रक्षा नहीं मिल रहे, गारंटी के बोल रहे थे, गारंटी का पैसा नहीं आ रहे, बिना गारंटी देते हैं.
At a time when the government has admitted to delayed guaranteed disbursals and admitted to having no money for development, this 7 crore plus allocation for workers of the party has led to serious questions being asked about the Siddaramaiah government's priorities. With Sagai Raj in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
And as I wrap up this edition of Super 6, as always, let's get to our daily fact check. There have been videos doing the rounds with claims that women beat up and chased away BJP workers who were there in Bihar to distribute Sindoor, post-Operation Sindoor. Did this actually happen? Not really. We fact-check these claims and these videos doing the rounds to find that this video is actually from 2020, when angry women had chased away a BJP vehicle that had gone for an election campaign in Muzaffarpur in Bihar. So the context changed. The date, of course, has changed, the 2020 video. Your daily reminder not to believe everything you see on social media. Here on India Today, we'll continue busting all of the fake news on social media. That's all we have time for in this edition of Super 6. Thanks for tuning in.